Mid-moment crisis. Written by ChatGPT and Jedi Steve. Every crisis is a question. Who are you choosing to become? I've been having a midlife crisis since I was 8 years old, Jedi Steve. All my life I have heard people joking about a man going through a midlife crisis. A stereotypical middle-aged, balding man starts working out, gets a divorce, buys a convertible Corvette, and suddenly decides he needs to find himself. Judgment aside, everything has a positive and negative side, even a midlife crisis. So let me ask a different question. What if a midlife crisis is not something to fear, but something to practice? What if we stopped waiting for New Year's Eve, a birthday, a divorce, a business failure, a graduation, or some other dramatic event before we seriously examine our lives? Why wait? I call it the mid-moment crisis. The mid-moment crisis is the conscious decision to pause, look honestly at where you are, and ask where you are going. It is choosing to examine your habits, relationships, leadership, education, business, purpose, and contribution before life forces the examination upon you. The word crisis comes from the Greek krisis, meaning a judgment, decision, or turning point. Opportunity comes from Latin roots meaning something favorable or advantageous. The two words do not share the same etymological root, but a crisis can become a turning point where new possibilities emerge. That distinction matters. A crisis does not automatically create opportunity. We create opportunity by how we respond to the moment. So what are you doing with your moment? For business leaders, this question can change everything. Are you building an organization that reflects your values, or simply maintaining one that reflects yesterday's decisions? Are you creating people who think, contribute, and lead, or are you creating people who wait for instructions? And for students, the questions are just as important. Are you preparing only to get a job, or are you preparing to become someone who can create value wherever you go? What skills are you developing when nobody is grading you? A mid-moment crisis asks us to become accountable before we become comfortable. Instead of saying, "This is happening to me," consider asking, "What can I do with what is happening?" Instead of, "I'm stuck," ask, "What is my next move?" Instead of, "Who is responsible?" ask, "What is my responsibility?" The words we repeatedly use shape the questions we ask, the questions we ask shape what we notice, and what we notice influences what we do. This is not about pretending everything is positive. Life can be painful, unfair, confusing, and incredibly difficult. But even in difficult moments, we can choose our next conscious action. What if the thing you have been calling a problem is actually information? What if the failure is showing you what needs to change? What if the uncomfortable conversation you have been avoiding is the conversation that could set you free? What if the bullshit is fertilizer? That last question may sound ridiculous, but think about it. Fertilizer is not beautiful. It smells terrible. Yet something valuable can grow from it. Your setbacks can become soil. Your mistakes can become lessons. Your disappointments can become direction. Your crisis can become a turning point. The idea that crisis can create opportunity is therefore more conceptual than linguistic. The opportunity is not magically hidden inside the crisis. The opportunity emerges through awareness, choice, responsibility, and action. There is another powerful principle worth considering. Every person is both an individual and part of something larger. Our choices ripple outward. How we treat ourselves affects how we treat others. How we lead affects the people around us. How we use our talents can contribute to something far beyond our individual success. What kind of energy are you bringing into the room? What happens when you replace the need to be right with the desire to understand? What happens when leadership becomes service instead of status? What happens when success is measured not only by what you accumulate, but by what you contribute? This is where the mid-moment crisis becomes bigger than midlife. A student can have one at 18. An entrepreneur can have one at 32. A CEO can have one at 55. A retired person can have one at 70. You do not need to wait for a crisis. Create the moment. Stop. Breathe. Look honestly. Decide what matters. Choose the person you want to become. Then take one accountable action. Tomorrow take another. Then another. Transformation does not always arrive like lightning. Sometimes it begins with a question asked honestly enough to change your direction. So here is my question for you. If today were your mid-moment crisis, what would you finally decide? What would you stop doing? What would you start doing? Who would you call? What would you forgive? What would you learn? What would you build? And most importantly, who would you choose to become? Maybe the greatest opportunity is not waiting somewhere in the future. Maybe it is standing directly in front of you right now. Why wait? Jedi mode activated.
What do you guys think?